rings louder than most. In Los Angeles, California, that man's name is Eugene Henley Jr., better known as Big U. A man who went from prison cells to City Hall, from street politics to managing rap stars. But here's the twist. The feds just indicted him on racketeering, fraud, extortion, and even murder. The streets are asking, why? Why now? You might think it's simple, but the story and the answer gets way more complex. The stakes are high and the betrayals closer than you think. Keep watching, because by the end, you're going to fully understand exactly why Big U was arrested and what this means for anyone who's ever tried to outgrow the streets. Let's start at the surface. Big U isn't just another OG from LA. He's the face of the Rollin 60s Crips. From the 80s till now, his name has carried weight in most ways people could never understand. He had respect of the block, the ear of politics, and the trust of celebrities. After a prison stint, he came out preaching peace. He founded Development Options, a non-profit dedicated to giving people alternatives to gang life. He sat on panels, spoke at schools, and even helped broker in new trustees. But here's where things get murky. Was this evolution or camouflage? The feds think they know the answer. But before we get there, we need to talk about a name that never leaves this story: Nipsey Hussle. There's a connection between Big U and Nipsey that the world only whispers about. And we'll come back to that in a minute. But first, understand this. In the world Big U operated in, reputation is currency. And sometimes the reputation starts to tell a story the law can't ignore.
So, what part of LA did you actually grow up in?
South Central LA. Born on 81st and Hoover, raised on which we now call the 60s in Arlington and Slauson, for most of my life.
Mm-hmm. Now, you were born in the 60s?
Yeah, born in 66.
Okay. So you grew up, you were a kid in the 70s.
Right.
Describe LA in your area during that time.
It was kind of like new, because we was moving to the west side of LA, so the west side of LA was kind of just developing, you know what I mean, like for blacks being able to come to LA, and we kind of looked like we was leaving we weren't really on the east side being on Hoover, but it was like that black flight going west. So it was new, it was young. When we moved from the Hoovers to the hood, it was kind of like the first time gangs was coming west at the rate we was coming. And I think Cripping came in 69. My uncle then was original OG Crips. So when we moved to the hood, it was different. And then for us, it was a family element, because my mother had 10 brothers and sisters. And we had like a big South connection. My mother was one sister she was 3 girls and 10 boys.
Wow.
So, and they all come from like a real tight knit. So, and they all came from like this aggressive fight nature. So I can remember my uncles fighting the LAPD in the front yard. I can remember us, having picnics at Van Ness Park. And then it was kind of like, real crazy. Well, for me, it was crazy because my uncle then was like really like big. They were selling weed, real big weed dealers. And sell the weed, use the cocaine.
So during that time, you're talking about the early 70s.
Yeah.
That's when Tukey Williams and Raymond Washington came together. That was like, what, 71, I think?
See, that's kind of like before my time, and it's like a quagmire with how that's told. With Tukey and Raymond Washington, that was like, them dudes like 10 years older than us. Mm-hmm. And it's a difference between what they was doing and what eventually morphed in what is today. Like, they the original Crips and where the name came from. What we ended up doing after 79 was what we call gang banging. And that was where everything had changed.
Now let's get back to those whispers. Nipsey Hussle's death shocked the world. But while mainstream media latched onto conspiracy theories about Big Pharma, the streets were having a very different conversation. Some people started asking, did Big U have anything to do with Nipsey Hussle's death, and why? Because they weren't just from the same neighborhood. Big U was once a mentor to Nipsey, but over time, Nipsey had built his own empire, made his own rules, and according to people close to him, distanced himself from Big U and his influence. That kind of independence is not always welcome to certain circles. And to add on to that, rumors of disagreements, power struggles, and behind the scenes tensions. On Drink Champs, Big U addressed it head on. He denied having anything to do with Nipsey Hussle's murders, and Nori himself admitted he hadn't heard those rumors before even asking him. But here's the part you need to hold on to. The feds aren't charging Big U with Nipsey Hussle's murder. Instead, they're using it as a pattern of power moves, intimidation, and silence. Keep that in mind, because soon we're going to tie everything together. But before we do, there's one death that hits even closer to home. And this one, it's not a rumor, it's in the paperwork. 2021, an aspiring rapper, court documents call him RW. According to the feds, he was working under Big U's label. The relationship went sour when RW didn't meet his contract obligations, and then made things go even worse when he recorded a diss track aimed at Big U that seemingly never came out. The indictment says that's when things took a deadly turn for the worse. Big U and his associate Sylvester Robinson confronted RW at a Las Vegas recording studio. What happened next? The feds alleged they shot RW, dumped his body in the Nevada desert, and threatened witnesses to keep quiet. And here's the part that makes the story almost unthinkable. RW wasn't just some artist. He was Big U's son's best friend. The message? No one's off limits. And if that's the kind of loyalty Big U demanded in privacy, imagine what prosecutors think he did in the public eye. But here's where things get even deeper. You're probably thinking to yourself, all this violence, all this murder, how did Big U get away with it? Well, that's where the nonprofit comes in. And that's where the paperwork starts to burn. Keep watching, because the next part explains how everything falls together.
RW. It says, as set forth below, there is probable cause to believe that Big U murdered victim RW on January 25th, 2021, and dragged his body into the desert in North Las Vegas. This is something that I went over in my video of these guys getting indicted, if y'all missed that, but I'm sure they're going to go over here. It says, on that morning, NLVPD detectives discovered the body of RW lying in the desert near the Apex landfill. RW had been shot multiple times in his body and had been dragged and left in a ditch not far from Interstate 15. Hours before his homicide, RW was at the studio of Witness 2 with Henley. NLVPD investigations revealed that RW was one of Big U's recording artists and was at the studio as a guest of Big U, recording for Unique Music, the independent record label that Big U and Martin co-founded. According to a studio witness, Witness 1, who was employed as a security guard for the recording studio, Big U was one of the last people seen with RW prior to RW's homicide. Witness 1 also stated that Robinson drove Big U to Las Vegas from Los Angeles in a dark gray Lexus, that Witness 1, in his security capacity, encountered Big U and Robinson when they arrived at the studio and had words with them because he did not know who they were. Witness 1's statements to NLVPD at the outset of the murder investigation have been corroborated by other witnesses and cell phone location data, among other evidence. Further investigation revealed motive, opportunity, obstruction, inculpatory statements, and more from Henley and other members and associates of Big U Enterprise. The murder and connection to the Big U Enterprise. On January 20th, 2021, 5 days before the murder and 3 days before Big U and Robinson drove from Los Angeles to Las Vegas, RW recorded a diss song that NLVPD later obtained. In it, RW rapped about the person who had money, that RW would be shot in the face for thinking shit's funny, and referenced a .38 revolver with no trace. Based on my knowledge of this investigation and conversations with others, I believe that in this diss song, RW was dissing Big U, referring to Big U as the bro that makes some money, and that RW may get shot in the face for thinking his lackadaisical use of the studio and general representation by Unique Music is funny. RW was shot days later in the face, apparently with a revolver that left no shell casings. It is unknown whether Big U heard these lyrics prior to.
Now, Big U's nonprofit, Developing Options. On paper, it's a nonprofit dedicated to youth developing, gang prevention, and community building. But according to federal prosecutors, all a front. The donations from celebrities and athletes allegedly embezzled into personal accounts, and his contracts from the Los Angeles mayor office allegedly diverted to fund criminal activity. He also applied for pandemic relief funds and falsified numbers to secure government money. The indictment says Big U claimed his record label Unique Music was $200 profitable in 2019. The truth, the label was in the red by $5,000. So where did all the money go? Prosecutors allege it went to propping up a criminal enterprise built on threats, extortion, and silence. That nonprofit wasn't a community resource. It was the perfect mask.
According to its website, Developing Options uses advocacy, education, resources, training, and development and sports to achieve its objectives. In the docuseries, Big U indicated that Developing Options was a platform he used to help individuals get to college instead of going to jail. Many other publicly available recordings online show Big U describing the structure of Developing Options, how it was funded, and what it claims to do for the community. Since approximately 2015, Developing Options has been the recipient of an annual $550,000 as part of a GRYD program overseen by the city of Los Angeles. From July 1st, 2018 to June 30th, 2023, Developing Options was allotted $2.352 million from the city of Los Angeles. From that, Big U has drawn hundreds of thousands of dollars purportedly in salary. The GRYD program has an executive mandatory handbook that is appended to each contract and that Developing Options, like every other GRYD contractor, must comply with. The detailed and extensive handbook has many requirements that include extensive criminal background checks, compliance training and approval of employees, attendance at meetings, logging activities, and liaisoning with local law enforcement, among other requirements. Based on my review of documents in the course of this investigation, Developing Options appears to have failed to comply with some or potentially all of those requirements. Henley further solicits donations to Developing Options from celebrities, companies, foundations, and other entities, which the victim donors believe will further a charitable purpose, but often instead are embezzled into Big U's personal bank account. As discussed in further detail below, Big U, Robinson, and Martin, and other Big U enterprise co-conspirators utilize Developing Options as a platform to conduct both violent crimes and financial crimes under the guise of gang intervention work. Henley also fraudulently applied for federal pandemic relief loans for his entities, including Developing Options, Unique Music, and other businesses. The loans and or advances he successfully obtained are discussed further below. Similarly, Big U and Martin helped one of their employees at Developing Options, i.e. Blanton, to fraudulently apply for a mortgage by manipulating his income records. The Big U enterprise is committed to financially enriching its members and associates by stealing or cheating its victims out of money and property. On June 16, 2020, Big U electronically submitted an EIDL application from Los Angeles for Unique Music, which I have reviewed, in which he falsely represented that Unique Music had a 2019 gross revenue of $500,000 and a cost of goods sold of $300,000. The true financial records that were obtained through the course of this investigation show that these representations made by Big U on the application forms were false. Based on the bank's records, Unique Music was operating at an approximately $5,000 loss in 2019. Specifically, the total amount of money that came in was approximately $30,000 and the total amount of money that went out was approximately $35,000. Nevertheless, Big U claimed that Unique Music was operating at a $200,000 profit in 2019. Those fraudulent misrepresentations caused the SBA to give Unique Music $90,000 in the form of a loan, less the $100 that was taken out for the application fee, and a $10,000 grant, and documents produced in response to a subpoena. Newly created financial documents for Unique Music also show that the claims to the SBA are false, as the documents show Unique Music operating at a negative 72.57% profitability and only $15,500 in total revenue. On June 24, 2020, from Los Angeles, Big U electronically signed a loan agreement between Unique Music and the SBA in which he certified that all representations in his application were true, correct, and complete. Then on June 26, 2020, Big U accepted from the SBA a transfer of approximately $89,900 into the Unique Music account based on the fraudulent June 16th loan application and the fraudulent June 24th loan agreement. On July 7, 2020, Big U accepted from the SBA a transfer of approximately $10,000 into the Unique Music account based on that fraud. The electronic transmissions of the documents and wire transfers of the funds traveled between Los Angeles.
And if you fully start to think of this, what artist has Big U put on, helped, talked about, other than Nipsey Hussle? Nipsey Hussle, I think, was the only artist we've ever seen Big U next to. And since then, we haven't seen him next to anybody. So it would make sense that, yeah, all the money that he's been getting is going back into the streets. But you're probably thinking to yourself, okay, I get what they're accusing him of, but why was he really arrested? Why did they come for Big U? After decades of knowing who he was. Keep watching, because we're here now. Let's talk about that why. So coming from my personal perspective, I think Big U is just getting too powerful in the eyes of the law. The law is looking at it like, we can't keep continuing to let this guy prosper, take our money, put it back into the streets. Even if it's not him personally, the people that he's dealing with keep ending up dead. You got Nipsey Hussle, that was your biggest artist at the time. Now you have this kid who's your best friend, kind of got a little name, kind of got a little buzz. He ends up dead. They're saying that your DNA is a part of the situation. I've never seen you even promote another artist. They're saying your nonprofit is being used for the same money, and you're saying that money was used to pay and fund, like, I guess, to pay yourself part of the money. But I've never seen you do anything with any type of kids, and maybe you don't have to show it, but I think that's why they came for Big U, is getting too much, like, he's turning into too much of a gang leader. Honestly, if you look at it, he made the Crips into a legal enterprise that he can make money off of now. The Rollin 60s Crip is a enterprise that you can make money off of. But the feds are alleging he built a criminal empire disguised as philanthropy. He used celebrity relationships to seal his operations. He used a nonprofit to launder money. He used intimidation to make sure no one spoke about him. But here's the real reason. He got sloppy, threatening witnesses, deleting surveillance footage, filing fraudulent paperwork. That's what the feds love, a paper trail. They don't move on whispers, they move on evidence. And according to them, Big U had all the evidence they needed, because in the end, no matter how big your name is or how many photo ops you do, if the paperwork doesn't line up, you're going down. But what do you think? Is this justice or a takedown of a man who became too powerful? Drop your thoughts in the comments. This isn't just about Big U. It's about what happens when you try to outgrow the streets, but you keep one foot in the game. Power without purpose always leads to destruction. Stay sharp and stay focused. I'm gonna catch y'all in the next video.